afternoon, everyone. It's so good to see a full room. Thank you for coming. My name is Marieke Leenhouts of the Netherlands Water Partnership, and I'm project manager of the Netherlands Pavilion. And it's my privilege and honor to be your host for this event. A warm welcome to our distinguished guests and delegates. It's an honor to have you at our Singapore and Netherlands Innovation Forum. And like I said, I'm delighted to see such a great turn up for this event. I must say, meeting in person again over the past days, seeing so many old friends, making new ones, it's been absolutely energizing. So this forum is a collaboration event with the Singapore Water Association, host of the Singapore Pavilion, our neighbor at the show, and the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Singapore. So thank you to the Singapore Water Association and to the Embassy for the partnership. Before we begin our program, just a gentle reminder to put your mobile phones on silent mode. Thank you. Our program consists of two parts. We will start with a panel discussion between our distinguished guests from the Netherlands and Singapore, and this will be followed by pitches from state-of-the-art innovative solution providers. And after that, you're most welcome to join us at the Netherlands Pavilion or at the Singapore Pavilion for matchmaking and, of course, for industry night networking. May I start with inviting Her Excellency Margriet Vonno, Netherlands Ambassador to Singapore and Brunei, to address us with her opening welcome. Ambassador Vonno, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. Did you see my dress? Actually made in Vietnam, but Singapore is everywhere in Asia. And water is everywhere as well. Many of you, I've seen your faces last year when we had the 2021 Singapore International Water Week online, and the Dutch did several events online. But it's so much better to see so many Dutch delegates here sitting next to our Singaporean friends. And the president of the Singapore Water Association, Mr. Chu, it's so nice that we can do this together again. For me, water is actually the most powerful of all the elements, even powerful than all the other four. And I've noticed it myself. Having lived in Singapore for 4 years, I know about the taste of water, and I've changed my water habits personally. I now like the warm water the Chinese way. I've noticed during my recent visit to Rotterdam that you can also order warm water in the Netherlands, just ask for tea without a tea bag, and then you're settled as well. That's one of the sort of examples I can give how the Dutch adapt to Singapore and vice versa. But we innovate in many ways, and I was in awe of the new delegates that I've seen, the Dutch companies, but also when I visit PUB or the startups that I know here in Singapore, it's thrilling. So I hope you will enjoy the panel of experts who will share with you a lot of the information, and I'm thrilled that we have a large delegation led by Vice Minister Michelle Blom, who is our DG Rijkswaterstaat. So enjoy this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Vonno. May I next invite our guest of honor, Mr. Chu Meng Yong, President of the Singapore Water Association, to address us. Mr. Chu, please.
I must confess that I don't think I'm the guest of honor here. Actually, the real guest of honor is actually Your Excellency Vice Minister from the Netherlands, which I'm very glad to have you to grace this occasion, coming all the way. But Excellency Michelle Bloem, Vice Minister, Netherlands Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Environment, Your Excellency Margaret Ronald, Ambassador of the Kingdom of Netherlands to Singapore, Mr. Chua Soon Wan, Deputy Chief Executive PUB, and all our distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, a very good afternoon. Of course, it gives me great pleasure to extend to you a very warm welcome, actually on behalf of the Singapore Water Association, to today's inaugural Singapore and Netherlands Innovations Forum. And I emphasize on the word inaugural because we never had before. So this forum is actually brought to you by the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in collaboration with Singapore Water Association and the Netherlands Water Partnership for the first time since SIWW. In fact, I think it highlights the very strong existing collaborations between Singapore and the Netherlands, and actually helps to showcase very innovative companies and their solutions to help keep cities sustainable, livable, and safe. So I'm honored to be invited to basically deliver this opening address. On Singapore and Netherlands, I think you all know that the collaboration, the partnership has been very strong, with strong ties at the government, private sector, and research and learning institutes collaborating on different levels. And in terms of water, we all share a common desire to drive innovation and leverage on innovative technologies. Singapore, of course, continue to strive to be self-sufficient in providing safe drinking water and have the ambition to be a global water hub. And Netherlands, of course, has also been developing water technologies very rigorously and always seeking for partners in terms of technology transfer and expertise. Well, you are now in the midst of the biennial Singapore International Water Week, which held this month of April. Basically, it gathers all the stakeholders from the global water industry to share practices, showcase the latest technologies, and of course tap on potential business opportunities. I think over the past decade, there have been more than hundreds of forums and conferences covering different emerging trends and challenges in the world's water ecosystems. And all these forums have been held actually in the week of SIWW, where we can actually share critical information, lessons, and also basically provides insights to new opportunities that may arise. In fact, I must say that we are very glad that SIWW can actually happen this year, physically, after a break of 4 years. Singapore Water Association, of course, is very closely associated with SIWW. The SWA actually was formed back in February 2004 as a trade association to basically represent and promote the interests of Singapore companies in the water sector. Today, SWA plays a significant role in developing a vibrant and dynamic water cluster and aspires to promote Singapore as a regional hub for all water services and technologies. And SWA itself actually provides a forum for collaboration, exchange of ideas and knowledge, and is an important link for Singapore companies to the larger international water network and help them strengthen their presence in the overseas market. And just want to share with you that to date, we have already close to 300 members, growing from an initial 24 members back in 2004. So we have made progress. Now on I think everybody's favorite subject on climate change, we all know that this is a challenge that's facing Singapore and the world. And the sea level rise is of course a huge concern. And it's very important for a city like Singapore to plan ahead and figure out how to reimagine our coastlines so that we can keep our shores and people safe. And in fact, back in April 2020, PUB, as Singapore National Water Agency, was actually appointed as the National Coastal Protection Agency to lead, coordinate, and explore the whole government efforts to protect Singapore's coastline. And yeah, I think what you have heard over the last day or two is that there has been more research and development fundings for this purpose. And of course, there has been a search for, I think, engineering solutions, I think with integration with nature-based solutions. So in this space, I would say that the interesting example that's happening is that there is a site-specific study along Singapore's cities, east coast, that's actually performed by a Dutch company, Royal Haskoning THV, and Singapore-based digital water scale-up Hydroinformatics Institute, H2I. So I think today's forum will obviously cover these topics and also explore on other issues relating to climate adaptation and coastal resilience, as well as look at water technology, digitalization, and circular economy, as well as the resource recovery. So I think I'm just excited, as you are, looking forward, I think, to a good exchange of vital technology expertise, I think, which will help, I think, strengthen our knowledge in seeing how we can actually contribute to the larger global water landscape today. So I wish everybody a good forum ahead, and once again, I thank the government of Netherlands and the embassy of Kingdom of Netherlands coming forward to actually organize this, and also, of course, the Netherlands Water Partnership. So let's have a good forum ahead. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. So as we've heard, Singapore and the Netherlands have strong relations and share a special bond with water. The countries collaborate on many levels, from policy exchange to research and development, recognizing that global challenges need bold solutions. The Singapore and Netherlands Innovation Forum highlights the existing collaborations and showcases innovative companies and their solutions to keep cities sustainable, livable, and safe. You will hear more on this during the panel discussion, and after the panel discussion, there will be a pitching session for Dutch and Singaporean companies. So without further ado, I would like to invite our panel discussion moderator, Johan Verlinde, to join me at the rostrum. And while you come up here, Johan is the Program Manager, Rotterdam Climate Adaptation Plan at the City of Rotterdam. The goal of the plan is to take next steps in preparing the city for climate hazards of heavy rainfall, heat, and drought. He works in close collaboration with citizens, the private sector, corporations, local water boards, and more. He also works with various different international cooperations to share and gain knowledge in climate adaptation. So Johan, the floor is yours, and you may introduce your distinguished panelists.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Nice to see such a group of people in front of me. It also takes time to get used to, because I was just used to Zoom discussions and talking to a screen. So good to have it live now. It feels a bit lonely on the stage now, so I'm going to invite my guests. We have an amazing panel today to talk about water management, coastal resilience, collaboration, and also the collaboration between the Netherlands and Singapore. So let us welcome the first guest, Miss Michelle Blom. Can I welcome you to the stage? And Michelle is the Vice Minister from the Ministry of Infrastructure and Water. Welcome. Over to our next guest, Annemieke Nijhoff. Can I ask you to the stage? CEO of Organised. Over to our guest from Singapore. May I welcome to the stage Mr. Chua Soon Guan, Deputy Chief Executive of PUB, Officer of PUB. Welcome. And our fourth guest from Singapore, Professor Koh Lian Pin, Director of the National University of Singapore's Center for Nature-Based Climate Solutions. Welcome. So that was a short introduction, and now I give one of you each the floor to tell your role in your organization, but also tell us something about a recent project or development you're proud of. And Michelle, may I ask you first to...
In how many minutes?
4 minutes.
4 minutes.
And I will be very strict because we only have 45 minutes for the total
Okay, well,
discussion.
4 minutes is very short for a person who works for an organization that is 224 years old. How to get 224 years of experience in 4 minutes? A task that can't be done, but I'll try my hardest. I'm Michelle Blom, I'm the Director General of Rijkswaterstaat. And the Rijkswaterstaat is a governmental body in the Netherlands that's responsible to keep the feet dry of the Dutch people, also to be responsible for water safety. We're responsible for water supply and responsible for the quality of the water. And of course we don't do this by ourselves alone, but as a governmental body we do have a task in there. We have 10,000 colleagues in our organization, and we have an annual sum of about 5 billion euros each year spent also on water. Not only on water, but also on water. So that's about the perspective of Rijkswaterstaat, of which I'm the CEO. Rijkswaterstaat does this task because of the location and the geography of the Netherlands. We are really a delta. 4 big rivers are flowing through the Netherlands, coming from the rest of Europe, and flowing through the Netherlands and ending up in the North Sea and the IJssel Lake. And because of the location of the Netherlands, about 60% of our population can be flooded. So there's a huge task for us to keep all these people, to have them dry feet, as we say. And 75% of our earned income is also susceptible to flooding. So you can imagine that's a huge responsibility we have every day for the last 224 years. And the reason why I am still emphasizing on these 224 years is the only reason Rijkswaterstaat is still existing is because we were able to adapt all those years to the new circumstances. Because 224 years ago, the situation was completely different from now. And we adapt through innovation. And one of the projects I'm really proud of, we are doing at this time, is the Afsluitdijk. How many of you have been to the Netherlands? Can we have raised hands? And now the Dutch people out, the others? Okay, still a few. Well, we have this long stretch of dike, 32 kilometers in the northern part of the Netherlands, and it was built in the 1930s. And it was built to get a huge part of the Netherlands safe, including Amsterdam, the capital of the Netherlands. And this dike was built in the 1930s, and we're very proud of the dike. Only because of the different circumstances now and in the upcoming years, we have to renew this dike and to broaden it, to be able to, because of the sea level rising, to prevent flooding. And we do this in a way as sustainable as possible. So huge new pumps will be installed, but we do it in such a way that we use less energy as possible. What we also do is a dike prevents coming the water in, but also prevents fish coming into the lakes, from the sea to the lakes. And because the food supply in the Netherlands and the rest of Europe is also very important, we make a fish migration river in the dike. And it's very un-Dutch to put a hole in a dike. So we were sort of scared in doing that, but we are doing this. So I could go on and on about this Afsluitdijk, but I won't do this because the other guests need some time as well. But thank you.
It's impressive to hear yes, of course, applause. It's impressive to hear the story, and also that we build a big dike to keep ourselves safe, but still put a hole in it for the fish. important.
Everybody knows the story about the guy who put the finger in the hole of the dike to keep the Dutch safe. And now we're getting a hole in the dike. So that's the new era.
Good for the fish. Okay, Annemieke, may I ask you to introduce yourself and give us a nice project?
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, I am the CEO of Deltares, an independent research institute, applied research institute in the Netherlands, also built on the shoulders of institutes that are already there for 90 years. So we accumulated lots of experience on the integrated water research management, coastal protection, but also in the subsurface and groundwater reserves. And yesterday I had the unique opportunity to visit your new polder here, and this is also something I haven't contributed to it myself. I did a little bit on the Afsluitdijk and the sand engine, but not on this polder, and still I'm very proud of it, because it was originated from the ideas of people who were working with us, and it's the first polder here, the polder Polauke-Ketong, but for us this is a history over 600 years. And why is it so, for us as Deltares, of vital importance to join together with this area and the scientists in Singapore, is that although it looks the same, and although we need the expertise which we build up over a long time, everything is different. The debate on the safety standards, the way you construct a polder, what it takes for the sustainable use of this area, the intended use on the long term. So although we think we are experts, we can really learn if we have the opportunity to apply the knowledge in completely different circumstances, different weather conditions, different subsurface conditions. So this is why we are here. We're not here just to share the knowledge we already have, but by doing so and really working on an equal basis together, we learn from new paradigms, and this, I think, is one of the key success factors of innovation, that it's not only about technology, but it's how technology is embedded in different circumstances, from the physical perspective, from the societal perspective, the economic perspective, the spatial planning perspective, and that's really something to be proud of.
Thank you. Then over to Mr. Schwa.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here today. and thank you, Excellency, and also Ambassador, for inviting me to this forum. I'm very happy. Before I start, maybe on behalf of PUB, I want to thank all of you for attending the Singapore International Water Week. Really, it has been a while that we met physically, face-to-face, and I think the experience has been good so far, so thank you. Okay, for PUB, for those of you who are not so familiar yet, PUB is the National Water Agency of Singapore. We manage the entire water supply. We also treat and reclaim the wastewater, and of course by now you probably know that after the treatment, we treat it further and it becomes new water that you can actually drink. And of course, as a National Water Agency, we also manage the drainage system in Singapore. Singapore is subject to tropical weather, so very heavy storms, and of course at times it's also very dry weather. But during heavy storms, we need to make sure that water is actually discharged to the sea as soon as possible to minimize the flood risk. So like what Mr. Chiu mentioned in his introduction, since 2 years ago, PUB has also taken on the role of Coastal Protection Agency. So now we are also trying to develop plans and measures to actually protect Singapore from the rising sea levels. For Singapore, actually, it's quite an existential challenge because Singapore is generally low-lying. We are quite a flat island, so we have no high grounds to retreat to. and about 30% of our coastline actually is below less than 5 meters above the mean sea level. So with rising sea level, with the storm surge, actually it does impose quite a fair bit of flooding risk for Singapore. So it's important that we develop in time, we implement in time, effective as well as sustainable adaptation measures to protect the Singapore people, our assets, as well as the properties. Well, I would say that we are not starting from scratch because, as I mentioned, we have been managing our drainage system. So the drainage expertise can be, in a way, translated to coastal adaptation as well. And also, 70% of Singapore is already protected by hard structures. So that also provides a certain level of protection. But I believe we can do more. And we need to do more so that we keep ourselves safe. And when we do more, I think it's important to also to incorporate nature elements in the engineering solutions that we are thinking of. And again, this is not new. I believe some of you have visited Marina Barrage 2 days ago. Yeah, Marina Barrage actually is not just to serve the function of creating a reservoir in the city, but it also helps to minimize the flood risk in the city area. At the same time, it also incorporates nature elements and it provides a recreational space for families, for the communities. And another example I want to quote is also the Kallang Bishan Park. Kallang Bishan Park is a nature park right in the center of Singapore. It's a very popular park. Actually, if you come to the park maybe more than 10 years ago, it's actually just concrete drains. But we actually studied different models around the world, including the Netherlands, and we find that we can actually naturalize the canal. We naturalize the canal, we bring people together closer to the water, and over time, it actually create a lot of value for people because it's right next to where people live, it's right next to the residential estates. So on that note, I also want to say, therefore, I think it's important for us as we look for new solutions, we continue to exchange knowledge as well as ideas with various people, various countries, various cities, like what we are doing here today at this forum. And for Singapore and the Netherlands, I also want to mention that we have a very close relationship. My parent ministry, the Ministry of Sustainability and the Environment, we have a memorandum of understanding with the Ministry of Infrastructure and the Water Management. And under the MOU, we have under various work streams, we have a lot of exchanges, including covering water management, and increasingly we will also do more in terms of climate change adaptation. So we really look forward to working closely with the Dutch experts and agencies on how we can look at the solutions together. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, a good takeaway of what you just said is that climate resilience might sound very technical, but it can also make your city and your country a lot more attractive, livable, biodiverse. So it's multifunctional. And I've been to Bishan Park and it's amazing. It's lush and green and perfect. Last but certainly not least, Professor Ko, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks very much, Johan. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to be here today, together with my fellow esteemed panelists, the Vice Minister Annemieke Sun Guan, and also to be able to meet Her Excellency the Ambassador. I'm actually even more excited to be on this panel than having my first taste of New Brew. I was just walking past New Brew, very exciting. So I'll revisit the stand later. So my name is Lian Pin. I am a scientist and actually a conservation scientist by training. But currently I am the director of the NUS Center for Nature-Based Climate Solutions. I think or a few of us mentioned nature-based solutions earlier. At the same time, I'm also the director of the Tropical Marine Science Institute, also at NUS, the National University of Singapore. I think at NUS we have a long history of collaborating and partnering with our Dutch counterparts, researchers, as well as our partners in the public and private sectors in the Netherlands as well, to learn about the technologies and techniques for protecting our coastal areas, for conservation, for many other priorities that we and challenges that we both share in our respective countries. I think if I would speak about one exciting project that is happening at the moment at NUS, it would be about our project on blue carbon, particularly on mangroves, the use of mangroves as a nature-based solutions for many purposes and benefits, including, of course, coastal protection, but also for the benefit of biodiversity in the coastal areas, as well as to benefit the local communities, particularly, again, in the coastal areas. I think there's a lot of potential for Singapore and our neighboring countries to understand and potentially implement nature-based solutions to help protect us against climate change, rising sea levels, and also to create new green growth opportunities for this region. Yep. And thanks.
Thank you. So a panel with a lot of expert and expertise over here. So let's ask you some questions. And the first one is for you, Michel. And you talked about the history of your organization, but what I would like to know is what has changed over the past year when dealing with resilience and adaptation? Do you see a shift?
Well, I see the urgency is growing on that we really have to do something and that the climate is really changing and that we can't go on the same path in the same speed, that the urgency to act in time is what you said, and that in time is now. And that's very difficult to come to solutions. I mean, with all the technical expertise we have, I think we know what to do. But because the measures are in all ways they have effects on everything, on nature, on economical, societal. So to decide on which measures should be taken, well, that takes also a great deal of guts to decide to those decisions. And I think the Dutch can learn from the Singaporeans in doing so. I'm quite impressed what you did the past decades in building this city. It's my first visit to Singapore, and I'm really in awe. That's what you have managed to do. And I think that the Dutch can learn from you in getting the urgence into really actions by making political decisions. And I think that's the difference for the past years, that in the Netherlands the urgency is on a higher level than earlier.
Talking about a sense of urgency, Deltares worked on the IPCC report, and I think the thing that the report says is act now or we're lost. And a question to you, could you share the most important effort you feel countries should take on the short term? So what should they do and act now?
Wow, if I had the answer to that question, I think I would be very popular. But well, what really there are two things that really was again new to me, although I consider myself to be in the core of the debate of climate change. And the first thing was, although we know that it is happening already, I think in the Netherlands the urgency was risen because we had floodings, not from the sea, not from the rivers, but because of extreme, long and heavy rainfall. And I think we have been hanging on a narrative that climate change is more or less similar than sea level rise. And sea level rise you can monitor, and it takes a couple of decades to prepare. And then suddenly we had this tremendous flood in Germany, Belgium, and then in the southern part of the Netherlands, $30 billion of damage, hundreds of people who died. So this was really about climate change is already affecting societies and lives wherever on the planet. And the second thing for me was biodiversity is not something which is nice to have at the side of the system. It's in the core of the challenge that we are facing. We can't adapt ourselves to climate change and not taking into account biodiversity. And I think this was a very clear message. And although it was resonating somewhere in the back of my mind, it's now in the front of my mind that these two challenges are very much intertwined and that this is a challenge for all the engineers. I'm an engineer myself. I have been trained to solve problems with technology, but we have to be humble. We have to see that nature is also guiding us in finding the way how to deal with this challenge.
All right, so act now, but also take biodiversity into account. I think it's also an opportunity because we can, again, by doing it biodiverse, make it more attractive. Bishan Park is a good example of that. To Professor Kohn, I won't skip you, I'll get back to you soon, but what makes Singapore unique regarding climate adaptation?
Well, it's an existential threat. I mean, to put it simply and loudly, we have to act, and we have to act not just through climate change adaptation, but I think also, as importantly, through climate change mitigation. And I think Singapore is making some very strong strategic moves in both areas. Of course, adaptation, we have PUB taking the lead in terms of implementing a lot of our coastal protection strategies. But also in the area of climate change mitigation, there have been several very bold and ambitious policy measures being announced to enable us to achieve our climate goals in the coming decades, including policies that would help drive down our emissions across the public and private sectors. So I think Singapore is taking a very serious and whole-of-government approach towards addressing climate change challenges that we are facing. It's a global emergency, and we are taking approaches in both the adaptation and mitigation baskets of solutions. And I might add also incorporating both technological solutions as well as nature-based solutions.
Thank you. And now to Mr. Schwa. We already talked a little bit about collaboration, and could you share more on the close collaboration specifically between the Netherlands and Singapore on climate adaptation?
Actually, like what Lian Bin mentioned, I think climate change, when we want to address the challenge, I think it's both mitigation and adaptation. So before I talk about adaptation, can I just also talk about some of the projects we work very closely with the Netherlands? I think one project that has really become successful and we are already implementing it in our water treatment process actually is working very closely with PWNT on ceramic membranes. It's a very close partnership. We look at the membranes together and we PWNT actually test bed the membranes in one of our installation, and we find that it works. It helps to reduce the carbon footprint. It helps to reduce the energy. It also more sustainable because it's more long lasting. So all this I think will also contribute towards mitigating the contribution to CO2 and global warming. But more importantly is that through the close working relationship, we managed to make it work. We are now we have one of the biggest ceramic membrane treatment plant in Singapore in our Choa Chu Kang Waterworks, and we're very happy with it leads to this positive outcome. Now, on climate change adaptation, we have been exchanging knowledge and ideas and practices with our counterparts on how we handle drainage. For example, for drainage, we are adopting the source pathway receptor approach, whereby we actually apply interventions at different parts of the drainage system. But like what we, which I believe the Dutch is also doing as well, what we are doing now is also that we don't think you can expand the drainage capacity forever. So the thing to do is really to make use of the weather data, the sensor data, to see how we can improve the response to flood incidents. For example, let's say we can forecast that a flash flood is going to occur in a particular part of Singapore. Then what we can do is we quickly send our operation team to provide assistance to the people who are, or the property owners who are affected by the flash flood. And we can also send out flood alerts to individuals so that they get themselves out of the harm's way. Okay, that's one example that we have exchanged information with the Netherlands. But increasingly, like actually just before this forum, I also have a very good discussion with Ms. Animeke. We are also discussing how we can further exchange of knowledge, as well as maybe even collaborate on research projects on climate change adaptation. Really, we have a lot to learn from the Netherlands. I mean, including how do you actually, now Your Excellency, you mentioned that actually now you can actually have holes in your dikes. We really want to, we really want to understand how you can provide effective protection at the same time still allow the nature to coexist. I think it's excellent. So we will continue this conversation, how to learn from each other on this. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I think learning goes both ways, right? We also learn a lot from Singapore. Question for you also about collaboration, but more about our citizens. How do we involve our citizens in the development of coastal resilience and adaptation? I think they're a really important stakeholder for us.
Yes, I mean, they are the reason why we are doing things for the population of the Netherlands. So we start projects, and from day one, we integrate them in our projects, and we ask them to share their views, their knowledge, also their pros, their cons, and during the entire process. And what we learn from this is when you use the wisdom of the crowd, you are able to make the projects even better. So often people think, okay, when we are going to the public, it will be a burden, and it will stall our project, it will delay a project, and our experience is otherwise. When you start from day one with the people, they help you to get the project in a better way, you get better solutions, and they'll vouch for your projects. They are, in the end, the carriers of the project and the fans of the project. So I find it also really rewarding by doing so with the people.
Very good. Yeah, I'm a strong supporter of this. In the climate adaptation program for Rotterdam, it's key to work with.
Yeah, I can recall a time we were thinking about a tunnel near Rotterdam. You're from Rotterdam. Yeah. And we are designing the tunnel, and we were in those, it was pre-COVID, and we were in all those cafes and rooms, and with the people just drawing where the tunnel should be. And we had thought of a way, but they came with another design, which actually, in fact, is now installed and implemented. So you see, when you start with the public, you get really a lot in return.
You get support.
You get support and ideas and wisdom.
Yeah. All right. Inspiring. Off to Annemieke. A question about nature-based solutions. And also, after you, I want to hear the thoughts of Mr. Coe on the same question. So what are the additional effects of nature-based solutions, and how can we quantify the value? I think it's also important to, if we can quantify the value, it's also interesting to invest in it, right?
Yeah, maybe then I'll go back to the decision period on the sand engine in the Netherlands. It's about 12 years ago. And there was really a harsh debate, actually, with the predecessor of Michele, because we had to compare two alternatives. The normal way of coastal protection and maintenance, which we knew how to do. We had lots of measurements, we had validated models, and it was according to the principle of not spending money more than essential, so being very cost effective. But then there was this innovative idea of doing just a mega sublation before a very tiny, small part of our coastal zone, not knowing exactly what would happen. Of course, we modeled and we predicted how this sand would develop itself, but actually by that time, we had only models based on sand transport from the Sahara. And we were not sure how the coastline would develop. We were not sure what it would mean for the freshwater supply behind the dunes. We were not sure how the behavior of the waves would influence the recreational use of the surfers and the swimmers in the sea. But we thought if we keep on doing what we've been doing all the time, we never know. So, and that's about innovation. You have to accept that you move forward without being sure. And we were so lucky to combine this project with a large research program. Over 30 people had their PhDs over this 10 years. And now we have our models of dune development in our own area with our own processes. But it even created added value that we haven't considered up front. And we saw amazing power of nature developing itself much faster than we expected, keeping the sand on the beach and before the beach much longer than expected. So if we knew how it would develop up front, we definitely didn't have this severe debate. But sometimes you just have to go for a change of mindset. And the minister by that time said, it's a financial crisis, we're running out of money. If we keep on doing what we did in the past, we definitely will not keep the coastline safe. So we are forced to look for more innovative approaches. And I think nature has been helping us even more than we expected.
Wow, so we need courage to invest in such projects.
Yes, I think that's the difficulty with nature-based solutions. We, as engineers, have lots of experience and also experimental facilities to test and to gather evidence that our constructions are safe. And if you compare that with nature-based solutions in which you have sometimes lack of proof or lack of data, this is not a fair comparison. So I think if we really want to come over this bridge of opportunity, we have to accept that we sometimes make mistakes. That's part of innovation, but that we have to invest in data gathering, modeling, research to have a more equal comparison between the hard and concrete engineering measures, which will always be necessary, but I think it gives more room for the application of nature-based solutions.
Great. Now, Professor Go, I'm really curious how you look to this question.
Yeah, thanks, Johan. And maybe I'll just follow on to what Annemieke mentioned. Obviously, if we haven't spent enough energy and effort in testing the robustness and efficiency of a certain kind of solution, including nature-based solutions, as vigorously as we had for technological solutions, we wouldn't understand the nature-based solutions as well as we do the technological solutions. But I think we are catching up. We are now beginning to pay more attention to nature-based solutions, to invest very aggressively in our research and development to see how they can be important components of the solution set, including how they could be integrated with technological or built solutions to help us address our climate change impacts. So I think that is, there's in that sense, there are obvious values to nature-based solutions in terms of climate change adaptation to protect us against coastal effects, coastal climate change-related effects. But on the mitigation side, I think there is even greater potential because, as we know, one important source of carbon emissions comes from the degradation or the loss of nature, including not just our inland forests, but also our coastal ecosystems, such as mangroves and other habitats, mudflats and other habitats. So by protecting or acting to protect these nature-based solutions, we are already turning off one tap of carbon emissions. And regardless of whether they are important or not, or efficient or not for our adaptation efforts, we have to turn off that tap. Otherwise, we are continuing to emit our carbon to the atmosphere. So we would not be addressing the source of the problem. And maybe I'll end my answer by saying that most importantly of all, of course, coming from my biased view, it is the right thing to do. We have to invest in protecting and restoring nature because it is the right thing to do.
Couldn't agree more. We have to act and we have to do it now in a nature-based way. To Mr. Chua, and every time I come to Singapore after 2 years, it almost changed. You do a lot, but also you invest a lot and you announced major projects on coastal protection and climate resilience. And what made Singapore take such giant leaps?
Well, as mentioned just now in my introduction, really, water supply is an existential challenge for Singapore. Similarly, sea level rise is also an existential challenge for Singapore. If we don't do something about it early, I think Singapore won't survive because basically, like what I mentioned, a significant part of Singapore will be inundated, and we don't have any hinterland to go to. This is what we have. We have to protect what we have. We have to make this continue to be a livable and a sustainable country. But I think to expand on my response, I also want to say that the reason why we are now taking a big step in this area is also because inherently climate change impacts are still have a lot of uncertainties. Actually, it's great uncertainties. In fact, if let's say climate change impact is very certain in terms of the scale or the timing, then finding the right solution actually is quite straightforward because, like fellow engineers, we know when to implement something on the dot to take care of the problem. But because there's a lot of uncertainty, therefore I think it's important for us for Singapore to start early, to study the different options, to learn from other countries and cities to see what have worked, what have not worked so well. And from there, then we actually take a more adaptive approach to see how we can actually maybe implement maybe a set of different solutions, try them out, then see whether we can over time build on it further. Or if it's not working, we still have some time to maybe change to something that is more effective. So it's important for us, I think, to start early. And also, like what was also mentioned by Ms. Animeki, I think because this forum is about innovation, I also want to link it to innovation. We should not just see challenge or the threat as it is. I think we should see as an opportunity to do something, to create value. And for climate change adaptation, or for that matter, even mitigation is the same. We see it as opportunities to challenge us, to stretch us, to find something that will create a better outcome. So in terms of adaptation, we certainly see that, I mean, learning from the Netherlands as well as other cities, we see it as an opportunity for us to actually remake and reshape our coastline to make it a more livable and more attractive and more sustainable coastline that also incorporates the nature and also help to preserve the biodiversity ecosystem. So that is something that we believe in, and we want to work with the industry and the partners on this. Yeah, thank you.
Together, how do we work together on climate resilience and coastal protection?
Yes, well, by doing it. It's a very exciting era, and the time is not only on this forum ticking, but also in doing so, the time is ticking. And I see several projects in the Netherlands and, of course, in Singapore as well, where we are acting with research institutes and with private parties. As I may mention maybe another example, it's the Markerwadde islands we created in a lake. The lake was kind of artificial with concrete walls, so the ecological life in the lake was sort of dying. The people actually came up with the idea, can't we have some islands in there so to get the life back? And we created it, government, research institutes and private parties and the public. Don't forget the public, but they can help us.
Well, thank you. So the message of today, I think, is don't wait, act now. Think about integrating climate resilience with biodiversity in an attractive way. Involve your citizens and learn by doing. So I think...
Don't talk, act.
Yes, that's the solution. And what you said, we have to act because both Singapore and also Rotterdam, if we don't do anything, we couldn't live there. So let's do it now, and it goes for the whole Netherlands. So thank you very much for your inspiring words, and may I have a round of applause for the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our honorable panelists and moderator for an interesting discussion and in-depth insights into the two topics for building a resilient cities. We will now begin the second segment of the forum, the pitching or company presentations by Singaporean and Netherlands companies, covering the fields of climate adaptation and coastal resilience, circular economy and resource recovery, and water technology and digitalization. You will hear from 8 companies. Each company will be given 4 minutes to present their pitch, and I'm warning the companies, we'll be very strict on time. So first up, I'd like to invite Delta Marine Consultants and FlexBase International to introduce the solutions for climate adaptation and coastal resilience. Please come up to the stage, both of you, and in the meantime, I will introduce the first speaker. The first company pitch is from Mr. Bas Redijk, inventor of X-Block, Dutch Engineer of the Year 2020, and head of the Water Department of Delta Marine Consultants. DMC, I'm happy to say, has been selected as one of the very few companies to proceed to the pilot phase of the PUB Global Innovation Challenge. As one of the shortlisted companies, they will receive mentorship, test bedding opportunities, and support from PUB to further commercialize and scale up their solution. Congratulations for that, Bas. So now, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. It's an honor for me to be here. As Delta Marine Consultants, we have a long history in the Netherlands. I just need the clicker. So we are already here for over 30 years. We are a Netherlands-based company, and we have a big office in the Netherlands, but our importance in Singapore lasts already for over 30 years. I myself, already 25 years ago, was in Singapore for 6 weeks to be involved in coastal protection for a location where there was coastal erosion. So also I myself have a long history here. Delta Marine Consultants is part of a big contractor, the Royal BAM Group in the Netherlands. Therefore, we like to design structures which really can be built and which are suited for the needs for a specific project. We like to come up with innovations, and we also are very honored that we have been selected here to participate with PUB, so that we have won an innovation contest and that we are going to implement new research where we can combine nature-based solutions with engineered solutions. Our focus points here of Delta Marine Consultants in Singapore are waterfront infrastructure, but also coastal protection. We like to do research, and we also work together a lot with universities. We have been visiting universities here in Singapore, but also in the Netherlands we work with universities to come up with innovative solutions, which finally we want to deal with the effects of climate change and make sure that we can still live in the areas where we live now. We have our own laboratory. We are involved in the Afsluitdijk. Therefore, the Afsluitdijk, we developed a new armor unit in the Netherlands called Level Block, but here X-Block Plus was developed in our own laboratory. And you see at the bottom picture, you see an image of this block on the Afsluitdijk. You can also see it in a booth in our exhibition. This block, so we also developed together with universities, so we really need this research. And research is very important to come up with these innovations which we need to combat the effects of climate change. Now, there are many projects where we are involved in. The Afsluitdijk was already mentioned, and we really are very heavily involved in the design of the Afsluitdijk. I myself am involved in the hole in the dike for the fish migration river, and every day I see updates, and so presently we are busy designing this hole in the dike so that the fish can easily swim through it. So we are also making local areas where the fish can rest while they swim through the dike. So this is also nature-based with engineered structures. You see other images. There's the Katzandbad is also shown. Katzandbad is also a weak link in the sea defense, was a weak link in the sea defense. And we designed there a marina, and we used the sand dredge from the marina to nourish the beach and nourish the dunes to improve the water safety. So there are many projects, very interesting projects, and we are happy that we are able to participate in those projects. We are also involved in storm surge barriers, so you see a number of storm surge barriers here, and the storm surge barrier we will also need more and more around the world because of sea level rise. Worldwide, we are active, as Singapore is very important to us, and we really welcome working together with the Singaporeans. And so we need also the local knowledge, and together we can improve, and we need to learn for each other to give maximum benefit and get the best product results. This image just shows you where around the world we are active, and basically it's worldwide. As with PUB, we are going to do further innovations, and we hope to implement these innovations in the Asian region. So also in this region, there's a lot of work to do. So that's basically concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Bas. Second pitch and last in the category of climate adaptation and coastal resilience is Mr. Jan-Willem Roel, co-founder and CTO of FlexBase. Jan-Willem?
Good afternoon. I'm very honored to be here to present you FlexBase Singapore. We started 15 years ago in Holland. with this. Yes, oh, I'm going too fast. I'm missing the first one. Okay. We started with the floating pavilion in Rotterdam. And the floating pavilion is a floating structure that is based on EPS and concrete. And we can make rather big structures from it. The largest one we made at this moment is 1,000 square meters. But we have a problem, and you all heard just before me is that we have a climate problem. We have sea level rise. But that is not the only problem. We also have to deal with land subsidence, like in Jakarta, 15 centimeters a year. But also, we have to deal with land scarcity, like here in Singapore. We need land. We slowly cannot keep all our people on this earth on a certain amount of land, and also grow food. So we have rising sea levels, but we also have two other major problems. So what we do is we build large floating structures with polystyrene. Here you see a picture that we built on a lake in Holland, and we start with plates of polystyrene. They're coated, so they are protected that nothing can come in, like animals or whatever other things can damage the polystyrene. Then we build it up with blocks. We put concrete on top of it, reinforced concrete, and that is our product. And we can make it as big as you want, and we can also make it in any form that you want. The last project I did was in Bahrain, in the Middle East, and that was a circle, a complete circle where a lounge was built on. What are now the big things about this construction, this concept? That it is unsinkable. It's not hollow. So that means that it will always be there, even when there is a collision with another ship or other construction. Another thing is, you don't maintain it. Like any hollow ships from steel, you have to bring to shore to maintain it, to paint it, or whatever. So this kind of structure, I can guarantee at least for 50 years to be on the water. Especially here in Singapore, we are dealing now with floating greenhouses, because here we have the 30-30 goal. By 2030, we should have 30% of the food should come from Singapore itself. We're working together with the NUS and another major university here in Singapore that we are working on a high-rise floating farm, because those farms need land, and we don't have land here. So that is the reason that we want to put it onto the water. We're talking at this moment for a floating high-rise food farm for 5,000 square meters. So that gives you an idea what kind of systems we're looking at. Thank you very much for your attention, and hope to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Jon Willem. Next we move to the topic of circular economy and resource recovery. We're gonna hear about the Dutch water refinery, and I would like to ask Ms. Helene de Voy of Witteveen en Bos to come up to the stage.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to introduce the Dutch water refinery to you. I'm Helene de Voy from Witteveen en Bos, and we're cooperating with Royal Haskoning DHV in the Dutch water refinery. Let's see if it works. Yes. So you can see the logo that we have together in the middle top. I'm introducing this wastewater treatment system that's focused on resource recovery, and of course one of the most important resources is the water itself. And furthermore, it's a carbon zero technology, and I'll tell you a bit more about it. So it's innovative because it's not based on biological treatment. There are no bacteria involved. It's completely physicochemical. And the water that is produced is of a higher quality than is customary for wastewater treatment. One of the things that is removed is are the micropollutants, so pharmaceutical residues and the microplastics. Up to 95% removal rates are achieved. That makes the water suitable for instance, new water production. And as it's not a biological system, but it's physicochemical, no valuable materials like organic compounds are oxidized. They can all be recovered, for instance, used for more biogas production. Other materials, I'll get to those in my next slide. Also, because it's no oxidation process, there's no CO2, N2O, or CH4 emitted, no direct carbon emissions. A little bit more about the technology. It consists of 5 steps and an additional 6th one if you want to put it back into nature. This step is not needed if you're using it for new water production. The first step is customary in wastewater treatment, some screens to recover and remove sand. Then fine sieving to recover cellulose, the fibers from toilet paper that can be used in road, for instance, in tarmac. Then 3 steps that make the water suitable for nanofiltration. And then the steps, coagulation, flocculation, and dissolved air flotation remove organic compounds, but also nutrients from the water. And in the end, a very concentrated stream of ammonia is produced, allowing for nitrogen recovery as well. As I mentioned, if you want to use this system for new water production, only a relatively easy RO step with fewer energy and chemical use is needed, and some UV disinfection. In the Netherlands, however, we have a lot of wastewater treatment plants that feed directly into our nature. So sometimes there are even 100% of discharge in dry seasons. In that case, sometimes remineralization through, for instance, an ecological wetland filter is needed. We've been developing this in Wilp, a city in the middle of the Netherlands, for which we won an engineering prize, the Vernufteling, for those who know it. And we're currently developing it further, upscaling it, making a design for the wastewater treatment plant in Ede. And one of the things that we want to do now is see how it applies to Singapore, as it has a smaller footprint. It's only 60% of the footprint of a biological treatment plant. So that's one of the advantages, and we're expanding on those. We considered entering this technology into PUB's Carbon Zero Grand Challenge. However, we deemed another technology more suitable, the more digital solution of the emission impact controller that also focuses on reducing these N2O emissions from wastewater treatment. Finally, this picture on the bottom, you can see that we're upscaling it to a full-flown water factory. Final thing that I'd like to mention that's a benefit for Singapore as well is that there are no smells. It's really more like a factory. So it's even in an urban area, it's very well suited for this. If you'd like to know more, please contact me or my colleague Jair. We're here this afternoon, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Helene, for this very interesting talk about circular and resource recovery. Now we're going to go to the last category of water technology and digitalization. And I would like to invite the speakers to come up to the stage, find a space to stand or a spot to seat. Speakers from Acquaint, C-Cube, Pinnacle, Infosys, Optiqua, and Waterome. So for this final category, water technology and digitalization, you will hear from no less than 5 companies. Be prepared for a bit of a carousel. First up, I would like to invite Mr. Rudy Dijkstra of Acquaint.
Thank you. So, hello everyone. First, I have a question for you all. So, how many of you have been experiencing water scarcity of the situation of having no water from the tap during the COVID pandemic? So, anyone? Please raise your hands. No one? Oh, that's a perfect situation. As of today, 60% of the water produced in the world is leaking through aging assets. Being like a utility, it's very hard to prioritize your actions and also to know exactly when to do what and where. As Acquaint, we provide you with more and better insights to be able to spend the right money at the right time at the right location. So, yeah. So how basically, if you have a look in more detail about the problem that we solve, I think almost every modern society experiences like aging assets. But also the utilities itself, they experience difficulties when using theoretical models to line it up with the real life situation. I think almost 50% of the pipes that are being replaced as of today should not have been replaced. And also, if you have a very large asset base, it's really hard to determine where to start first instead of replacing all the pipes. So the solutions that we provide are a spin-off of the Wetsuit Research Institute from the Netherlands and have been validated by the Institute KWR in the Netherlands. So what we do, we developed technologies to be able to inspect pressurized drinking water and wastewater mains, basically on a do-it-yourself basis. So we try to give utilities or the mechanics or the field workers the power to collect data whenever there's an opportunity to do so. And we use this kind of hardware and the data in combination with AI to predict when a pipeline is likely to fail or what the remaining life is, so the utilities are able to prioritize their action and spend their money at the right time at the right location. So basically, where we are looking for as a company is to have discussions with the utilities, like we had today with PUB, for instance, but also with partners that could help us out to be able to demonstrate these kind of technologies here in the region. So if you are a utility or if you are like the service provider that would like to work with this kind of technologies, please reach out to us. We are the Holland Pavilion, and yeah, please meet us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rudy. So one question for you. I heard that PUB will launch its new brew beer at Industry Night right after this. But I also heard that Acquaint has its own line of beer.
Yes, we do. So yeah, we know that drinking a beer now and then helps you to get better insights. So I'm sure that will work out fine here as well this afternoon. So yeah.
Looking forward to try it.
Yeah, thank you.
So next up is C-Cube. You might say that they're a bit of an odd duck in the pond at a water event, but did you know that the impact of corrosion globally is estimated to be $2.5 trillion US. C-Cube developed technologies to measure and predict corrosion, enabling predictive maintenance. Mr. Chewahu of C-Cube.
Yes, thank you very much, Marike, and thanks to be here. So as a Dutch citizen of an Asian descent, coming to Singapore, it feels like coming home. So I'm very happy to introduce C-Cube and to introduce our novel technology to predict corrosion. So we are a company based at the Technical University of Delft, and we are active globally. So we are helping asset owners, coating manufacturers, and contractors to predict when the assets will fail, and we can predict when corrosion will start to reduce the costs of maintenance and at the same time extending the lifetime. So what did we develop? We developed technologies to measure the coating. The coating is a barrier for a lot of steel assets. And when the coating fails, the cost of maintenance rises sharply. So what we measure is when the coating is exposed to the environment, for example, UV, water, or temperature differences. There's porosities developing in the coating. And these porosities form a path for the water to penetrate through the coating and reach the steel. Our technology can measure the development of these porosities, and we can measure when the corrosion will start underneath the coating. When the corrosion starts and the coating fails, which you detect always at a later stage, the cost starts to increases rapidly, and direct and indirect. It impacts the unavailability of different assets, and at the same time, you create a lot of disturbance. So if you plan the maintenance just before the corrosion starts, you can overcoat it, and when you're too late, you need to build structures around the asset, build scaffolding, you need to remove the coating and build a new coating system, which causes a lot of downtime, unavailability and disturbance. So what we have developed is different sensor technologies. We have a handheld device, IoT sensors. We have robotic solutions to do the measurements in a very safe and an effective, cost-effective way. We have IoT sensors that can measure corrosion, and we are able to predict what the remaining lifetime of assets would be. So this will lead to higher certainty for for the asset owners, cost savings up to 50%, and in the end it will be more sustainable, because if you can extend the lifetime of the assets, you need less raw materials and you need less energy to produce the assets. So what we are looking for in Singapore is companies which has a lot of steel assets and which has coatings and which are at this moment paying a high price for the reactive maintenance. This was my presentation, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, J.Y. So after this wave of Dutch companies, I'm proud to introduce to you a company from Singapore, and I hope I pronounce it correctly, Mr. Thiagaraja Vinayagam of Pinnacle Infosys.
Hi. Thank you for the opportunity to present our solutions to this forum, and especially thank you for the Singapore International Water Week organizers. And we are a Singapore company. We are here almost 9th year. We are running our operations in Singapore, and we do have operations in the regional level. So we have multiple solutions provided, especially for smart cities. And we have a lot of systems we have developed and deployed in the regional level. Currently for this, for the SIWW, we have introducing new 2 products under this event. So the number 1 is on the underground asset mapping. Okay, this is a solution we partner with Maya International, especially providing underground assets mapping with leak detection and leak repair. So the underground assets is due to aging, wear and tear. Definitely they pose a lot of dangers to the people because water get contaminated if it is older pipelines. So what we are providing is holistic solutions, taking the satellite image based to identify the water leaks in undergrounds. The depth up to 15 meters from the ground level, we can identify where are the leakages. We demarcate it, high leaks, low leaks, and moderate leaks, and from there we go to the above ground verification in order to get 99% of the exact leak locations. Once we identify the leak locations, we have a two type of technology, which is Dollar for the smaller pipes, up to 6 inches pipes, which no need to dig down under the ground. We can repair it without digging the ground. So it's called a Dollar, a trenchless automated repair solutions. If the pipe size is higher, we go to the CIPP. It's a cured-in pipe. We do it on site itself. This what happened when we can the older pipes is get damaged. We can design on site based on the project to project. We can provide the solutions on that. Okay, this is one of the solutions. Currently, we are looking to partners in this forum. We would like to happy to work with anyone. Also, we have a AI-based smart water quality management system. This is a SaaS platform. It provides event detection systems, okay, which provides data monitoring from sensors to the all level of including regulations. Okay, we can, if a predefined level is beyond that, then it triggers alert the respective mechanisms. Also, we have our own smart water meters. We are happy to announce on this SIWW 2022 2 meters, one in ultrasonic LoRa and another one is ultrasonic NB-IoT, which is a cost effective. We have a full range of solutions. Please do visit our booth at H34. You can get a lot of technical details and price as well. Thank you for the opportunity.
Give it to the next one. Thank you, Raja. The following speaker is Mr. Jos Willem Verhoef of Demcon Optica.
Thank you, Marieke. Good afternoon all. It's good to see you in 3 dimensions. Instead of watching a flat screen out of my home, it's really a great pleasure to be able to present live today. Marieke made it very clear that I only have 4 minutes to present. So I'll start with my conclusion. That's the final slide of my presentation, which says real-time water quality monitoring makes water distribution safer. That's where Optica stands for. It's our belief to secure water safety, you need to know events as they happen. And that's what we do in Optica. We are a company specializing in water quality monitoring and especially event alerting. And it will not surprise you that for that reason our main product is called Event Lab. And with Event Lab we offer a complete solution for real-time water quality monitoring. Complete, meaning we offer the sensor, I'll come back to that later. We offer the data transmission infrastructure. We have the event detection software and a web portal. And we install and do the maintenance of our systems. For many reasons, I'm very happy to be in Singapore again. I've been visiting Singapore for many water weeks in the past, and during those years we have been collaborating with the Public Utility Board of Singapore. And just a few weeks ago we announced that we are really installing and starting the operational rollout of our system Event Lab, which we co-developed with PUB. I think many technology developers will know that it is very difficult to develop a technology into a prototype, into an end solution without an ambassador, without an end user that is believing in the solution. And PUB of Singapore have been a very loyal partner over the years. We are, since a few years, part of the Demcon Group, which research and production facilities in the Netherlands, and also we have a subsidiary in Singapore, which is helping us with the project in POB. But let's share a few words about the reason for real-time monitoring. Why is it important to do the real-time monitoring throughout the complete water chain? And as our understanding, it's all about consumers' trust. It's very important not to lose consumers' trust, and we think, although water companies around the world do their utmost in protecting drinking water quality, distribution networks are still a weak link. response on incidents is often too little and too late. They do take samples, but those samples are not able to monitor events as they are happening. It's very difficult to identify a contamination source only based on sampling. Of course, there are traditional online monitoring tools already in the marketplace, but they do miss very important contaminants. So we think that new monitoring tools are required, and it will not surprise you that we feel that our solution, Event Lab, is the answer for that. We measure water quality changes. With our sensor, which is a refractive index sensor, we monitor very small changes in the water composition. And the beauty of this technology is that the refractive index changes as the water composition is changing. And therefore, with only one sensor, you're able to monitor a very broad group of contaminants in the water matrix. So we monitor the water quality, we set a baseline, and we raise a red flag when the water quality exceeds the normal variations. It's the electronics, it's the sensor, but it's also, and which is very important for us, the web portal, the algorithms, and the data transmission infrastructure. We like to deploy our sensors in the whole water chain. So we start in production plants. In Singapore, for instance, we start with our systems in Johor water plant in Malaysia, and we follow the water with our sensors throughout the complete water chain. So reservoirs, pump stations, distribution pipe, and so on. I see my screen is turning into red, so please feel welcome at the Dutch Pavilion, where I will answer all your questions about the Event Lab. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jos Willem. It's so nice to hear more about Demcon Optiqua. And our final presentation is a very special feature. You see it coming up on the stage. It's from another Singaporean company, Waterome, and I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Jaron Lim.
Great, thank you so much. Hi everyone, I hope everyone's doing okay. So since I'm the last speaker, I'm wondering will I get more time, but I see the timer has already started, so I guess not. Okay, so Waterome, today I'm going to be talking about immediate post-disaster resource recovery. So actually, maybe I should have been in the previous section. But today, Waterome, we are a provider of honest water solutions for mostly in the households and the humanitarian sector. But there are resource limitations, right? When we're talking about a disaster, we talk about floods, coastal floods, things that, a lot of people in the world are facing. And we want to recover water, right? But not just recovering water for water's sake, but to save lives. And this is a pressing issue because currently, during a flood, usually one of the first things that gets affected, floods, earthquakes, hurricanes, is your water resource. You have destroyed roads, and because of that, your water resources, your wells, they are impacted. And usually what is happening is governments, humanitarian organizations, they're providing bottled water, right? A lot of plastic bottled water, very logistically intensive, and a lot of times there are not enough resources to meet the needs of the people. Because of that, every year 130 million people lose access to safe drinking water, and even if they survive the initial disaster, they don't have enough clean water. 40% of deaths happen because of diarrhea, because of unclean water. And so that's why we developed our system. Over the past 5 years, we've actually developed a very simple yet effective solution. You can see I've carried it here. We have one here that my colleague is going to pump in a bit. So first, think very simply. We've seen a lot of great technology here at SIWW, very complex, very technical. But what we've been able to do is we've been able to bring that high-tech ultrafiltration membranes, world-class kind of technology, into a portable system so that the people who need it most can have access to it. So it's hand-powered. It works exactly like a bicycle pump, as you can see my colleague here. It's lightweight. I'm carrying a system like this, right, in one hand, and this supports up to 200 people. And of course, at its core is an ultrafiltration hollow fiber membrane that is actually rated by the World Health Organization for comprehensive protection. Cheers. I love my job. So with this, you can say no to the traditional ways of plastic bottles being distributed during disasters. You don't have plastic waste. You don't need infrastructure to set this up. Literally just a water source, and you can pump it. You don't need electricity, and you don't need an engineering degree to operate it. And with this, actually, we say yes to maximum impact. One system supporting 200 people, set up within 1 minute, and it can last for up to 2 to 3 years. So since 2014, we've actually been deploying these in many disaster relief responses around the world, whether it's an earthquake in Indonesia, a typhoon in Philippines, or even a refugee crisis in Myanmar. Impacting over 200,000 people through over 1,000 of our solutions in over 40 countries through 60 humanitarian partners. Even right now, we're having inquiries from people supporting the Ukraine crisis. So our next steps is to really incorporate more technology, improve the accountability of our solutions through IoT sensors to look at the amount of water that is being used, and then to track how much carbon are we offsetting through the removal of plastic bottles, through the removal of traditional boiling, and also to track the lifespan. And of course, to expand our product range to fit more removal capabilities, heavy metal salts, and also more market segments. So if you're interested to learn more, you can visit our booth at J47. It's right out here at the back, near the toilets. And yeah, we are happy to work with technology partners, humanitarians, governments, whoever is supporting a disaster relief response. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As a Dutch person, you know, the similarity with the bicycle pump, it feels very familiar to me. Thank you. So you've heard from 8 companies, each of them offering innovative solutions to solve the global water challenges that we face. And with this, we've come to the last part of our Innovation Forum. And that is a final word from me, your host. I hope to have inspired you with the panel discussion and with our overview of innovative solutions, both from Singapore and the Netherlands. You're most welcome to learn more by visiting the Netherlands Pavilion and the Singapore Pavilion just outside of this room. As for the Dutch, the next opportunities to meet us are listed on this slide. Next week, we host an online meeting on flood protection, and end of May, you can find us at a live gathering at the IFAD Trade Fair in München, Germany. This is what we do at NWP. We host trade missions, Netherlands pavilions, and other events to share the Dutch knowledge and expertise. So on behalf of Netherlands Water Partnership and our members, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you to attend any of our meetings. So this brings me to the end of this gathering. I would like to thank the Netherlands Embassy for organizing this event, and a big thanks to the Singapore Water Association for their collaboration. Thanks once more to our distinguished guests, our panelists, our moderator, and to the company presenters that were here up on stage. And thank you, our audience in the room, for your attendance. Enjoy the new brew beer at the industry night. I know I'm looking forward to it. And enjoy the rest of Singapore International Water Week. Thank you.